Hey everybody, I just wanted to show you the slug, this adapter that's going to go into the, it's going to thread into the upper triple here, and then that part, focus, hello, focus, is going to thread into the top of the fork. This is raw metal, and I mean, it oxidizes pretty quick. This is just from it being in the forks and outside. So I'm actually going to hit that with some rust remover and get all that cleaned off. I may even put some kind of clear coat on there just to keep that from happening. It's going to be sealed within the fork leg cover, so it's not like it's going to be exposed, but better safe than sorry. So basically, like I said, this is going to thread onto the top of the fork, and the whole fork tube then is going to slip through the lower triple up and through, and then thread into the upper triple, and that's how it's all held in place. And my understanding from Morton's is that the point of this piece is to make up for the difference in the rake. I'm guessing it's just giving more rigidity to the fork since it's going to be raked out 6.5 degrees. But yeah, so I just wanted to show you that. This thing probably weighs, God, this thing's got to weigh a pound. It's pretty darn heavy. Solid too. And because of this, I'm not sure how I'm going to do the front air ride, because that means that I can't go through the top of the upper triple and into this thing. So I'm going to have to see if I can go somehow between the bars somewhere under here. But I'll figure it out. All right, back out in the garage. I am going to push down the list, my list, plan of attack list, my front air ride, because I'm going to have to make some changes on how I'm going to tap the upper triple. You notice I've put my stock triple trees back on. I have to make some changes into how I'm going to tap that to put the air ride in, but my new springs should be coming either tomorrow or Tuesday. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take out the upper fork cap, or take out the fork cap, so that I can change my springs, but also because I'm going to need to add this piece. Let's see if I can pull it out in front of the camera. This piece is going to go into the fork tube. It's going to screw into the top, take the place of this fork cap. So in order to loosen these caps, I put my stock triples back on and put the forks back in, because now I can break the fork cap loose, and it's going to be stabilized, held in place by the lower triple clamp, because I don't have the vise with the soft jaws for doing shocks. So I put it in here. It's held tightly in place by the lower triple, and there's not going to be any flex in the fork tube at the top because I have it in the upper triple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 6mm Allen, and I'm going to loosen the bolt that's in the bottom of the fork, and then I'm going to come back and loosen the cap up here. I'm not going to take it off fully yet, because once I loosen it, I'll have to take the upper triple tree off in order to access it, to be able to thread it out. It's under pressure, spring pressure underneath there, so you have to put constant pressure down as you're turning it out, so that you don't, shoot the cap and the spring out of the fork. And I will film all of that. Like I said, I have to go down below. I'll move the camera down so you can see what I'm working on to loosen the bolt in the bottom of the fork. And then I will come back up to the top. Oof, it's a lot of work to do. So it's been a couple of days since I've been in the garage. Here we are, Christmas Eve. Obviously, there's been a lot going on, preparing for the holidays. Wifey got a new car yesterday, so it's like there's just been a lot going on. Anyway, where I left off, I put the stock triple trees back on temporarily, just because it's going to be easier to loosen the fork cap in order to get the fork cap off, get the springs out. So what's going to happen is I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and inside there, let me see if we can see it. Not sure if we can. Don't know if I can focus in there or not to get it. But there is an Allen head bolt in there that I need to loosen up. And that's going to loosen everything that's inside the fork tube itself. Then I'm going to break the fork cap loose. Once I do that on both sides, I'll take the upper triple off, It'll be braced in place by the lower triple, both forks. Then I'm going to take those fork caps off, and I'm going to pull out the stock springs. Got my Racetech springs in the mail day before yesterday. And then instead of putting the fork caps back on, these are the pieces that are going to go into the top of the fork tube, and then these thread into the bottom of the new triple clamp. And these are super beefy. These things, like I said, weigh probably close to a pound each. And they are going to provide additional support for the forks to make up for the 6.5 degree rake. And thank you to one of my guys from the Roadstar forum, excuse me, the Star Bike forums. I'm going to check the welds on the neck to make sure there's nothing there that can be destroyed or sacrificed or in any way affect the stability and integrity of the neck by having the rake, and then of course the extra forces put onto the neck for having the front wheel out farther. So I'm going to get into that in just a bit, and stay tuned. All right, so excuse me, I had the upper triple clamp on the forks just to brace them to loosen up those fork caps. They actually weren't terribly tight, but again, you want them in the upper triple clamp just because you don't want there to be any flex back and forth of the upper fork tube when you're trying to break that loose, just in case they're tight. So this is what it looks like with one of the fork caps removed. This is the spring, and this tube, of course, is filled with fork oil. And I'm going to replace these factory springs with those Racetech springs up there. I have not taken this fork cap off. It is loose. But what you want to do is, if you're going to take your fork caps off, you have to do it slowly and apply downward pressure, because as you can see, there's a spring in here. And so there's a lot of pressure on the bottom of that fork cap as you're pushing it up. And as you can see, when the fork cap comes out, it looks like so. If you're going to service your forks and you take these fork caps off, replace this O-ring. I'm not reusing these fork caps because the plugs that are going to go into the top are not going to require that same O-ring. At least there's not one on there. It would definitely be a similar size. So I may get another set just in case. Actually, you know what? That's not true at all. This does require an O-ring, and it goes right there. So I'll take a look and see what the size is, because I think it's going to be a different size than this one. Anyway, so that's where we are in removing the fork cap off the top of the fork tube. And now I'm going to do the other one. Like I said, just apply a little downward pressure as you do it. I'm just using a socket and a ratchet. And as I come around, I'm not close to the threads being out, but as I come around, I'll be putting some downward pressure on the fork cap, so that when it finally breaks loose, it's going to spring up a little bit in my hand, but not terribly. All right, so I have gotten the front wheel on here just so I can test fit and mark the fender, because I think I'm going to have to fabricate some, well, not think, I know I'm going to have to fabricate some mounts. So what I've done is I've taken some 1/2-inch rubber hose and taped it to the wheel so that I get the clearance that I want of the fender off of the wheel, and then I'll mark it to create some mounts. So with the fender sitting on top of those rubber hoses that are taped to the tire, that's what it's looking like. You can see that the tabs on the fender, the mounting tabs, are much narrower than the mounting points for the stock fender mounts on the stock forks. So I'm going to have to fabricate a set of brackets that meet up with the stock mounting points, fill that gap between the fender mounts and the fender itself. So that's about, looks like about 9/16 of an inch, and then also is narrower. It should be kind of cool. I could probably do a single piece of billet aluminum about 9/16 of an inch deep. I believe these mounting points are like 4.6 inches center to center. and I believe that the fender tab is a little over 3 inches. So if I did a single piece of billet wide enough to go across there and drilled other holes this close in on the back side, then that should work pretty well. So I have to get my measurements and work that out. All right, so I've been putzing around out here in the garage a little bit. I was working on the RV all day and got frustrated. I said, let me go work on the bike. At least that's something I know I can get something done. So I got my my raked triples on. There's another clip that should be right before this one that shows the wheel on with the hose there. That's going to give me the height that I want for my front fender. So I've actually taped that on there. I've test fit the fender, and I've taken my measurements because I have to create some fender mount brackets because the tabs on the fender are not wide enough to meet up with those. It's a Harley style fender, so they're only like 3 inches apart, the holes. So got to work that out. I put the raked triples on. I didn't put these covers on the forks because they're not going to stay on. They're on now just so I can get some other work done and pull the back end off, and I felt more secure having the front on. But it looks pretty good for it to be relatively naked. I was going to put my Racetech springs and stuff in there, but I realized as soon as I put those in, it's going to drop the front really low because those forks are, those springs are very short, and I don't have any air lines going in to actually lift the front of the bike up. So I went ahead and put the stock springs back in there and put them on. Sits pretty far out, especially since it's going to have a wrap fender, but there is going to be a chin spoiler on here, so it's going to take up some of the room there. But so far, so good with the raked triple. Looks pretty nice. And you can see here is where the stock lower triples were. You can see the difference now because of this piece. Which is to make up for the rake. So once I put this thing down, the rake and trail will actually be very close to stock, even though the front end is moved out about 3 inches, I think it is, maybe 4. But anyway, that's where I am right here, right now, still going. What's happening? It's 2 days after Christmas, I think. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Feliz Navidad. I think that covers just about everything. Moving on, I just posted a clip. Got the upper triple clamps on, got the triple clamps on, got the wheel dry fitted, got the hoses on the tire to get my clearance for my fender. I dry fit my fender. I got my measurements to make a bracket to mount the fender. I'm probably going to cut a prototype out of wood and then go back and have one machined out of billet aluminum and probably have it polished, but I may powder coat it whatever color I'm going to do the fender. It'll just give me more time to practice my powder coating and all that other stuff. Since I got all the gear, I might as well hook it up and use it, right? So as you'll see, I now have disassembly will stay on the board because there's always something that's going to be getting disassembled. But I got my triple clamps done, dry fit and fit the wheel. They're not permanent because I still have to put the shorter springs and whatnot in there. So now I'm going to move on to the bag brackets. And I got the DC Chopper, something like that. I forgot the name of the company. They do bag brackets. They're super heavy duty. Found them on Roadstar Clinic's forum page, and it was a guy and his brother doing it. Apparently, they're not really doing it anymore, and he happened to have a set there for me that I bought, and he shipped out to me. I'll give them a proper shout out in the video once I do it, and put a link to them. I mean, they have a website, and for whatever reason, I can't remember what it is right now. By the time I post this, I'll put it up. Blooper staying in the video. So this is the kit. Comes pretty well packaged. These are going to go down the sides of the fender. That goes along the bottom. Like I said, it's very well packaged. I don't even know what all the parts are. I'm pretty excited about pulling the thing out and getting started. But it's really beefy compared to the rails and stuff that you see on eBay. Really solid, good welds, pretty well put together. So I'm going to get started pulling off what I need to pull off on the back of the bike in order to put those on. And once I figure out where I need to go, I'll come back on and keep it pushing. See you in a minute. Okay, well, as always, something has to change while we're doing this. I realized that I can't do the bag brackets yet because I have to do the rear air ride first. Because once I start putzing around with the bag brackets and I get them mounted up, then it's going to be terribly difficult for me to pull the rear wheel and start messing around underneath the bike. So I am going to move bag brackets farther down the list, and I'll probably switch 3 and 6. So, yeah. So we'll work it out.